Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to live a life so that you're always winning, or how to ensure that you're always winning at life. And so this was inspired by a recent book that I just finished reading, which was The Gap and the Gain. I think I might have mentioned it in my last episode as well. And, there are certain books you read and you take away, one or two things that you read in that book that really does make a big difference in your life. And so I've just, taken away one thing that I learned in this book, and I'm doing it every day, and I'm going to be sharing with you what that thing is. But this book is really what inspired me to record this podcast episode, because I think it's important, especially to all my listeners. I think we're all the type of personality where we're always beating up on ourselves, and we always feel like we're just not measuring up, and we feel like, I don't feel like I'm fulfilling my potential. And we're just the harshest critic on ourselves, right? Can you agree with that? Can you be honest with yourself for a moment and acknowledge, yeah, I am really hard on myself, and it can get so heavy on some days, but I don't know just what to do to change it. And so because of that, most of us, when I say winning, I'm really talking about feeling successful in life, right? Because winning equals success, right? The two words coexist together for us. We believe that if you are winning at something like winning a race, or, winning usually is a competitive term, that you feel like you're succeeding. That's really what, if I'm winning at life means to me. And most of us don't feel like we're winning at life. We feel like we're constantly failing or falling short of our own expectations. So if that is you, this episode is totally for you, and I want you to listen closely, okay? So let me grab my notes because my phone is charging. Hang tight, guys. This is the real life behind the scenes of making a podcast. Okay. So the number one thing that I have to say is that when we think of success, there is no universal measurement stick for what success is. But I think I lived under this idea that success looked like one particular thing, that everybody measured success this way. When I started breaking down that idea and realized, I can change my criteria for success. Like I was very uncomfortable with that idea of changing my criteria for success, because I thought, well, this is how you're supposed to define success. I don't know where I got that idea from. But for a long time, I thought success means successful career, successful business, success in the bank account, right? Like success also meant you were super organized, like had all your shit together, excuse my French. That's what I thought success meant. But now I know and I believe that success is what you want to define it as. It can be anything. So I really want you to examine and think about, what do I determine success to be? What do I currently hold as successful? If I was to look at people around me, people that I personally know, and maybe ones that are far, far away, they don't even know that I exist, but I follow them. Do I think of them as being successful or not? If yes, why? What are the things that I use, measurement criteria, measurable and maybe intangible things, right, that I use that makes me believe this person is successful in my eyes, right? Maybe not the rest of the world, but in my eyes. It's really it's really important that you examine this criteria, because to most of us, I don't think we've ever examined what does success mean to me, or what does success look like to me. And if we do know that, we've never questioned, okay, why do I think that? Where does that idea come from? Is it my own? Have I developed that? Or did it get passed down? Or that's what my parents taught me? Or that's what I saw around me? And I kind of absorbed it, right, through osmosis. I love that word. I kind of just absorbed it as my own, adopted it as my own without ever questioning, does this system work for me, right? And so this is your invitation to ask yourself, what is the criteria that I hold that tells me somebody is successful or not. Maybe for you, it's how they look put together, right? That's part of the formula that makes you believe that someone is successful. Because we don't truly know what's in a person's bank account, but we imagine that they have a lot in their bank account by what they drive, by how they dress, by maybe the vacations they go on, like the handbags that they carry, the makeup that they put on, right? Somebody could be broke as anything, but have like a fake Gucci purse that looks very original and drive a very expensive car that they have gotten a huge loan on and live in this huge house that they are mortgaged up to the hilt and give off the vibes that they're really, really successful. But inside, they feel terrified, and they don't know how they're going to make the next mortgage payment, right? So really, really look at what am I using to gauge whether someone is successful or not. What are my indicators? That's the word I was looking for. What indicators do I default to if I'm trying to figure out whether someone is successful or not? Okay, so that is number one. Number two, would you assess yourself as a successful person? Why or why not? If I were to come and ask you, if your name is Joe Smith, right? Like, hey, Joe Smith, would you consider yourself to be successful? This is a really uncomfortable question because we want to be able to say yes, but our mind starts feeling chaotic and it starts to come out with all these reasons as to why we're not successful. Okay? And so I think this is another issue that occurs, is that we think in order to be successful, every area of our life has to be pulled together, tied up perfectly, neatly, right? So it might be like, well, my career is going well, but my health is in the toilet. Sorry, no pun intended. Like, my health is, not that great. Or my career is going great, it's the best it's ever been, but then I feel really estranged from my family, right? So I'm not really that successful because I don't have every bucket of my life perfect, or at a 10 or at a 9, right? And that's another illusion. Do we really need to have every aspect of our life in order to tell ourselves that we are successful? And again, I think that is what our culture has fed us, that we are constantly consuming and striving to buy more things and do more things and spend more money to help us feel successful. But success is really an internal feeling. And I say this, you can never ever get an internal feeling by consuming something external to you. So this is a very uncomfortable question to ask yourself, is do I consider myself to be successful? If you are someone who wants to say yes, and part of you does believe you are successful, your inner critic, your mind, is a tricky little devil. One, it might poke doubt, right, which is the normal method of operation for it. But two, when you're actually starting to feel good about your success, it might say things like, yeah, but you're not very successful in that area, so overall, I don't think you're a success, right? Like, our mind is so clever at always pulling the wool over our eyes, over our true self. And it's always it's like an elastic band pulling us back to making us feel not enough and not whole with who we are today. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is your definition of success is crucial to whether or not you feel successful. Okay, this is kind of point one that I talked about, but I have had to change my entire perspective on what success looks like to me. It was hard work to change that perspective. My mind did not want to even look at that as an option, because I felt like I was like digging my way out of prison, if that makes sense. But I was under this illusion that this prison was this beautiful house that I was living under, if that makes sense. Let me elaborate in a different way. I thought the criteria for success that I had in the past was like a gold measure, right? And by telling myself, hey, let's change the definition of success, let's change the criteria, I thought I was settling, right? I thought, oh, I'm just doing that to make myself feel better, when in fact I'm actually failing at life, and these are all weak ways for me to feel better, right? So that it was a real struggle for me to change my perspective on what success looked like for me, because I really thought that was this universal measures measuring stick. And I was like, I'm not going to change that measuring stick. It's universal. Here's the truth. There is no universal measuring stick for success. It is whatever you want to make it to be. Okay. And success doesn't always have to be material based or external facing. I think, again, I referred to money, achievements, accolades, like the university you go to, the job title you have, the type of car you drive, the type of house you live in, the neighborhood you live in, like the clothes you wear. All of that stuff is external facing. And it's so easy to make quick judgments on whether a person is successful or not. Our brain loves that, right? It can very quickly absorb all of these data points and decide, is this person successful or not? But we have just been trained to believe that success comes from external factors. And when in fact, like I said, success is an internal feeling, and you can base or measure success based on intangible internal feelings and emotions. So now how I measure success, my external stuff still exists, right? I have goals and plans, especially for my business, that I will feel successful. That in itself is a flawed statement. I will feel successful, right? Because you want to feel successful today, and that's what this whole episode about. But I do the work, the internal work of feeling successful every single day. And so what I want to encourage you to take away from this episode is, how can you rig the system so that you always feel like you're winning at life, right? The current system that you have set up right now does not work because you don't feel successful. So let's change the entire system and the structure that you have set up. Let's dismantle it and let's rebuild it in a way that helps you feel like you're always winning at life. Okay? So how do we do that? You have to look at, okay, what else would make me feel successful outside of this criteria that I have for myself, which right now I feel like I'm failing at, right? So success, what if a successful life was defined by how creative you are, or how authentic and real you are, or how present you are with your family? What if success was based on how present am I with my kids and my spouse, right? How good am I, or, when I listen, like when it comes to friendships, like I show up for people all the time. Could you use that as a success metric? Because that's loyalty. You're giving somebody your energy and your presence. Why does the world not encourage us to measure success in all these intangible ways? But these are the ways that actually really matter to life, right? To give your energy and presence to somebody, to build an incredible relationship with your kids, like for you to be an incredible mom, right? Or a successful mom. Like, if you're a stay-at-home mom, we lose our identity completely. And we think, I'm not really that successful because all I do is stay at home and look after my kids and run the house all day long. But what if that could be your criteria for measuring success, right? I showed up for my family today. I ran this household. I keep things running so that everybody in my life can have, things running on clockwork. And, or how about if we measured success on how much joy can you experience in a day? I personally love this one because, the more joy we experience, the happier we feel. So what if a successful life is not about how happy I am, but it's really about how much joy can I experience? Or how much you persevere and how much resilience you have. And like, I won't quit kind of attitude. What if that was your criteria for success? As I said before, it's a very, very personal, unique signature for everyone of what success is. And you really have to tap into the deepest parts of you to know, how do I want to measure success? And that really is based on the type of life you want to live. A lot of people measure success, like what I call woke people, right? Measure success based on how much freedom do I experience? Not just freedom in terms of lifestyle, but freedom in terms of how free do I feel to be myself, right? I would say based on that criteria, I'm more successful today than I was 6, 7 years ago when, first of all, I didn't even know who I was and I didn't know what the real me looked like or what she wanted, right? So I've done a lot of work of excavating. And so now I live as true to who I am, right? As true to who I am that I can be. In fact, I just wrote a post on Facebook that was really scary to write, but it was about this part of me that's kind of, when I say dark, I don't mean like evil, but we all have these thoughts that are not pretty, right? That we would probably never ever say out in public that I thought that thought. But I do, it was a thought that I had, and I was like, ooh, that wasn't a nice thought that I had. And then I was like, I'm going to make a post about that because I'm pretty sure that somebody else probably thinks it. And I want to bring light to it and, talk about how did I change it? How did I work through it in that moment? And how did I use it, to become a better version of myself? Because this is really the work that I do day in, day out, right? I live and breathe and do this work of constantly examining who I am. How am I showing up in the present moment? How do I want to show up in the present moment? And what is the internal work that needs to happen to be that person? Like, it's like when I say it's like breathing to me, it really is. And now I do it on the go really fast. Before it required, sitting down and really digging, but now I can do it on the go. So anyway, I wrote this post and it feels really good. And I call that a success for today because I was real, I was raw. And for me, success is how real can you be? How real can you be? How much accepting of yourself can you be when the real you is shown to the world, right? I accept myself. There might be people who didn't like this post that I wrote, or I might go down a few pegs in the rating of me, right? Because I had this thought. And that's okay. I choose to live with that. And that is also why I'm successful, because I am living true to my values and true to who I am. And when I start to think of success in that way, it's actually a really freeing feeling and it doesn't feel so heavy anymore. And this book that I talk about, right, The Gap and the Gain, it really talks about setting yourself up to win at life. And one of the ways one of the benefits of doing that, the benefits are, I won't go into the science of it, but they talk about a lot of psychological benefits. And they share this beautiful story in this book where there was this one cyclist, right? And he was phenomenal at what he did. And he was, he was a professional cyclist who raced for a living. And he was touted as like the youngest, most talented cyclist ever. And he went all the way to the Olympics, right? But every Olympic that he went to, he fell short. I don't even know whether he got any medals. But to the whole world, it was like he held all this potential, but he could never reach that potential. So he was just always super down on himself, and he would, beat himself up no matter how much training he did and all the stuff that goes into becoming an Olympian, right? And so towards the end of his career, he still hadn't won a medal, right? Towards the end of his career, he decided to stop doing the thing that he normally does, which is to ask himself, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Have I not trained hard enough? Like just feeling like a huge disappointment and beating himself up, he decided to change the narrative and do it and just enjoy the process, right? He celebrated every win. He celebrated every practice that he showed up to. He celebrated every competition he showed up to. And he just started celebrating himself. And guess what? The very last race, he was going to retire after that. He was in the Olympic race and he raced for himself and nobody else. He said, I am proud of the career I've had and I'm going to bow out gracefully, being kind to myself. Guess what happened? He won the race. He won the gold medal and then he retired. So that just goes to show you how when we look to uplift ourselves, to celebrate ourselves, and look really hard to find reasons to say, I'm winning at life, it actually changes your emotional, physical, and psychological behavior, right? It took the pressure off of himself. And because he took the pressure off of himself and he was kind, he was actually able to perform better, take all the gremlins out of his head, and he got the thing that he'd been dreaming of for so long. And so that's another one of the reasons why I wanted to record this episode, is that you are the person who's standing in the way of your own success, not by the things you're not doing, but by the kind of self-talk you have and what you choose to focus on. So most of us tend to focus on all the things we have not done in a day, right? We get to bed, we're exhausted. It feels like we've had such a long day. But then you look at your to-do list and you maybe crossed off one or two, and then there's still like 15 things left on the list. And you're like, man, like, why can't I just not get ahead of this list? I'm just so disorganized. I just don't know how to organize my time very well. Like, I don't have anyone to help me. Like, we go into this like spiral of focusing on the things that we're failing at. And what this book says is really focus on where you are winning in life. And the coach that wrote this book, he's a business coach and he coaches a lot of small to mid-sized businesses. And one of the things that he says is you cannot leave this coaching session until you have found 3 things that you believe you won at, right? It could be, I met with 100 clients in the last 3 months. Even though 99 of them might have said no, right? They are forced to focus on what do you consider wins. And he will sit there like, you cannot leave this meeting until you've done this exercise. And I found this so profound. I was like, oh my God, how many times in a day and throughout my whole life have I only ever looked at where I am lacking in life, or where I didn't measure up, or where I didn't quite make it. And I feel disappointed in myself, right? So here's the exercise that I want you to start doing, that I've been doing, that I actually really, really like. So at the end of the night, before you go to bed, you write down 3 things that you consider are wins for the day, right? It could be 3 things you accomplished. And they can be anything. They can be absolutely anything, you guys. That's what makes this so easy. Sometimes it feels like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but this exercise is really about helping you change a hardwired perspective that you've had. So some days I put things like, I did the laundry today, right? I cooked an amazing meal because I didn't touch my business that day, or I did very little in my business. And in the past, I only ever would have looked at my business because that is what was driving me to gauge my success, right? When I make it at this point to my business, then I'll be successful. So all of this other stuff that I was doing in life just paled, like disappeared, and it didn't matter, right? So because of this new perspective shift, I am saying, hey, the fact that I did laundry like adds value to my life and my family's life, and that is a win. Something amazing happens in our brain when we say that is a win, right? Because how many of us think doing the laundry is not exactly worthless, but it's not of much value to anyone's life, right? It's just something that needs to be done. But what if you called it winning? What if you said, today I was a success because I actually did the laundry and everyone's clean clothes got folded and put away. Or even I just did the laundry and put it to the dryer without it sitting moldy in the washing machine, right? There are days that I've done that. So this is really about digging deep when you're not feeling good about yourself, to look for 3 wins. And here's the second part of the exercise. You want to set up 3 things for tomorrow, tonight, that you're going to say it was a win. So it's really like a to-do list, right? But in your brain, you're already affirming this is going to be a win for tomorrow, which then sets you up for success to complete it. And they're very adamant about it only being 3 things. You cannot make this 10 things, right? And put all your things to do. So this also forces you to prioritize, like what's the most important thing, right? So let me pull up one of the examples I had. Let me see whether it's appropriate. I started doing this just in the notes section of my phone. Let me see. All right, so for Sunday, I had today's wins, right? So this is me acknowledging, you know what, let me go back. So this is me acknowledging what I already is the win for the day. So I'm doing this at the end of the night. So the whole day I've had stuff to do, right? So I said I walked 22 miles as part of the 12-hour walk. I considered that a win, and it was already done. I took a bath to recuperate. That actually went on my winning list because I didn't want to take a bath. I just wanted to take a hot shower and get into bed. And my muscles were so tight and achy after walking 22 miles. My husband was like, you need to go take an Epsom salt bath so that your muscles can relax, right? So I considered that a win. And then I posted, videos on social media as part of my everyday business tasks that I got to do. So those were my wins. And then for Sunday, so this was Saturday night. So what are tomorrow's wins, right? So this is what I'm calling in, but I'm already saying this is going to be a win for me for tomorrow. So I had a coaching call with a client. I had to do laundry, like I was going to call that a win. And again, doing my tasks in social media for my business, like showing up every day in my business on social media is part of my job, right? And so I'm going to call that a win. So I set that up for Sunday, right? But then Sunday came, and I did do the coaching call. I did post on socials, but I think I didn't do another one of the, yeah, I didn't do laundry. Like I went through that whole day and I didn't do laundry. So even though I'd listed laundry as one of tomorrow's wins, I didn't do the laundry on that day. So I couldn't put that, I didn't want to put that as a win. So instead I had to look for another win, which was I did the meal planning, right? So I took that as a win instead. So do you get how this system works, right? So you have a list, today's wins, and you list 3 things that you have done for the day that you're calling a win. And then below that you have tomorrow's wins, and you list 3 things that you know that you want to get done tomorrow. And if tomorrow comes and you've not done any of those 3 things, that's okay. You're just going to look for 3 wins anyway. We don't call that day a failure because we didn't do those 3 things on the list. We just look for new wins and we call that a win. So why do you do this is really important, is because you want to train your brain to think that you are always winning. Because when you're always winning, not only are you feeling happier, but you're feeling more successful. And the more successful you feel, the more confident you feel, and the more energy you have to do things that maybe are scary, that are risks, that push you out of your comfort zone, right? Like if you feel, let's say you run track, right? Is that even a right term? Let's say you're a competitor and you play tennis or you play, sports is a really good analogy for this. If you always feel like you are winning at all the competitions that you go to, well, let's say all the matches that you show up for tennis, are you more likely to practice? Are you more likely to eat healthy? Are you more likely to, get up and go train when you're really sore from a match before? Yes, because you're like, I love winning and I got to do all the steps that help me win, which is eat healthy, work out even when I don't feel like it. Like take my supplements, whatever it might be. So it works in the same idea, is if you rig the game and feel like you're always winning, you're going to show up to the things, especially the process and the steps that you need to take to be winning at life. So if you start putting, working out, and even if you only worked out for 10 minutes instead of what you wanted to work out for 30 minutes, you would still put that as a win because you're telling your brain, I worked out today. That is a win. So that tomorrow you're going to want to feel like working out again because you won yesterday, not because you won't feel like working out if you're beating yourself up for the fact that you only worked out for 10 minutes, right? The energy is completely different. You're more likely to work out if you celebrate yourself for working out for 10 minutes than if you beat yourself up for not meeting your 30-minute mark. It's such a simple shift, but this is how you ensure that you're always winning at life. You've got to rig the game in your favor. All right. And then the last thing that I wanted to leave you with today is, if you make mistakes on the way to success, right? Or if you fail on the way to success, something you planned on doing didn't work out, you organized an event and nobody showed up, right? Or you had a client call that you really wanted to close, a potential client that you really wanted to close, and you didn't close them. Or you lost a really important client, now you don't know how you're going to make up that money. Like these are all challenges and what we can deem as failure or mistakes in life. And I used to, the perfectionist in me, the part of me that felt so unworthy, right? That was a big part of me that felt unworthy. Always said that in order to be considered successful, you've got to do it right, and you've got to do it right the first time. Right? That was such a hard thing to live up to, but that's the kind of pressure I used to put myself under. You got to do it right, and you got to do it right first time. If you get it right after like 10 or 15 attempts, it's not even really successful, right? Like, yeah, great, you got to your goal, but let's just move on. That's the kind of thinking I used to have. And now I look back at her, and yet I'm not cringing, but I just have so much compassion for that version of me, because oh my gosh, did she like was carrying a ton of bricks, and she couldn't even straighten her back, right? She was crushed under the just the just the heaviness she was carrying. So now my coach does a phenomenal job of this. When I'm feeling down on myself and I'm beating myself up, she always goes, "What did you learn from it? What did you learn from this thing not going your way? What did you learn from the mistake you made? What did you learn from dismally effing this up, right? What did you learn?" And that immediately brings levity to the situation. And you just think, okay, so I found a way, I found some things that didn't work. I'm going to go for it again, but I'm going to change all of these things. And essentially, that's what mistakes and failures are. They're just a way for you to learn and tweak and change things so that it works the next time, or the time after that, or the time after that, or the time after that. Failure and mistakes don't have to be attached to shame. And one of the things that was life changing for me was to realize that failure has to be a part of success. Without failure, you cannot have success. Without mistakes, you cannot have success. The two coexist. Success and failure are not on two opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, I would say failure is all along the spectrum, it's all along the journey. The journey to success, it's paved with failure and mistakes. So if you can just take the shame off of it, failing and making mistakes becomes so much easier, because it's part of the process, guys. It's inevitable. You cannot get to success without failing at things. So can we just take that incredible pressure off of ourselves to never fail and to always get things perfect? Just say, I'm going to do this messy, I'm going to do it my way, but I'm going to get there anyway, right? And that's how we ensure that you're always winning at life, all right? I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, email me and tell me, what did you think about it? And if you love this episode and you know someone that needs to hear this message, send them a copy, send them the link for this show, for this episode. Tell them, hey, this was really great for me, and I think you need to listen to this. All right? I love you guys so much. Take care, and until the next episode, bye-bye.